All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start. All right. I appreciate everybody for coming out and giving me your time. All right. Hopefully we don't waste it. And Monday, pays everybody in here. So looking at the US economic calendar right now. All right, Monday, there's no economic data coming out, right? Nothing to really worry about as far as planned economic data, right? So on these days, we all know we generally trade our plan. So what you see, you go after, right? Perfect setups only. Ideally now, of course, if anything comes out random, that's just the risk we take. But as far as economic data that can move the market a certain way or cause the market to get choppy, we have none of that on Monday. Okay. So Monday is a trade your plan day and probably the day you want to start off, making your money on and then maybe just kind of enjoying the week. Tuesday. Now this week, right? I want to kind of take a second to plug this. This week is going to tie into exactly what I'm going to say about the rest of the quarter and into next quarter, and you'll see why. But Tuesday, we have a lot of morning economic data, right? We have the GDP, durable goods, industrial production, capacity, all this stuff, right? Now, ideally, all of this comes out before market opens. What does that mean to us? We'll see the market's reaction during pre-market, right? And we'll trade based off of that. Now, what I mean by pre-market and trading based off of pre-market is if we have no plan, right? If we have no levels to watch, or let's say some of the stocks we are in already hit their levels, or let's say nothing moves, right? Tuesday's a new day. And if we have no plan, right, that means you're looking at one of two things. One being the ORB strategy, right? 15-minute strategy, basically using the high, right, of the 15-minute candle and the bottom of the 15-minute candle. That's one way to do things if you have no plan. Now, when using the pre-market, all you're doing is when the market opens, you utilize the pre-market high as a breakout level or a possible level to watch for rejection. Okay. You use the pre-market low as your put buying level, right? Or as a level to watch for a bounce to the upside. So again, if you have no plan or your own levels aren't set up, right, that movement during the pre-market can give you kind of a guideline on where to look. That's what I mean by utilizing the pre-market, right, to tell us how we're going to trade come market open. Now, that being said, we do have 10 a.m. consumer confidence. Nothing too crazy. That's more of a low level data release. All right. But again, for those of us who aren't sure, or want to kind of wait, or, don't want to trade through any possible ups and downs and manipulation due to this data, right? Just wait until 10 after 10 a.m. All right. All the data is out and you'll see where the market is going. But all in all, right, remember the majority of your volume, unless there's some type of spike during the day, comes at market open in that first 30 minutes to an hour. That's where your biggest moves are going to be made, right? And sometimes you'll see the market kind of settle or a pattern form. Then it will, from there, kind of move into that direction slowly. Okay. But again, Tuesday, a lot of data coming out, but in the pre market, so we'll kind of already get a view of what's happening come market open. Wednesday, initial jobs claims. Now, that's the only thing coming out Wednesday, right? But again, that's important. Um, Initial jobs claims is something we definitely look at when it comes to trying to see where the markets are going, where the economy is, and things like that. And that can definitely be something that utilize to move the market. Let me see something real quick. Hmm, just want to pull something up real quick and look at this. Hmm, got it. Okay. Just making sure. So market will be closed the 24th, I believe, or it closes early on the 24th. So, but yeah, anywho, just looking. So again, I believe Wednesday, and I'll double check that Wednesday should be a early close day. Of course, we have Thursday, ain't nobody trading that day. And then we have Friday, which the market should open up for regularly scheduled hours. All right, so it looks like a smooth week, right? Like I said, shift your focus to Monday. Okay, shift your focus to Monday. That way, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, maybe small minor trades and just enjoy the family. Or possibly setting up your portfolios for January going into next year. Okay. Now, take notes. A couple of things to take note of coming in to the end of the year is we've talked about this tax loss harvesting, right? So a lot of people have already started to close bad positions that they're negative on. That way they can write that off against their taxes when it comes to capital gains from their stock gains, okay? So that's something to kind of pay attention to. That could have also been something that added to the downward volatility and volume. On top of that, people are still right? Still utilizing tax loss harvesting until the year's end, right? That way they'll still maybe give positions some hope. If there's bad negative positions that are red in their portfolios, they close those out, count it as a loss, and they can basically write that off against their capital gains when it comes to tax time. Okay. So that's probably one of those things that could still bring some, volatility to the downside and things like that in the market, but also something that people are doing and something you might want to look into if you find yourself making a lot of money in the stock market and you have a couple losers, right? If you no longer have your conviction on those losers or you think they're not going to do well, you can close them out, right? Take that negative and put it against your gains. All right. But yes, now let's look into the fear and greed meter. We are in neutral, right? As the market closed Friday, we are in neutral. Again, that's not a bad place to be at all, right? We buy up the market in extreme fear, but we trade as is during fear and neutral, right? We still make that money in here and here. So again, nothing crazy. We aren't getting any huge indicators to buy up the market, and we aren't getting any huge indicators to maybe it's time to sell or take some of those profits. Okay. All right. So again, nothing big on the fear and greed meter. We're in neutral, still a regular trading time. So now let's get into a little bit of pattern finding and conspiracy when it comes to this market and how we're going to trade. I do expect, as I've been saying, right, a Santa Claus rally. I expect. Now, that's to say I expect doesn't mean there will be, but I expect a Santa Claus rally, right? And a couple of reasons why is I was looking at the last few election years for Obama, Trump, and Biden. Okay. Let me see if I could bring this up. This was the chart I was using. It's probably not going to do us much good yet. For you to understand, it's probably a whole bunch of Spanish or Latin to you guys or Arabic or whatever you don't read. So that being said, I will share another screen real quick with a simple chart I've created. Hold on. Why is it not? I need to share. Because it's down here. Okay. All right. So, boom. Can you guys see this Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, I could see the spreadsheet.
Perfect. So now, according to the last, remember, we're going off election year. I'm not going off of every year of the stock market. I'm just going off that starting election year for each president, right? So theoretically, in all presidencies for the last crazy amount of years, right? The November to December time frame normally goes and ends green. There's only been one year in the last 12 years where it didn't go green. All right. So if we're breaking it down, quarter four, right? When Obama stepped in, green, right? That's October, November, December, ended out green. Quarter one, right? That gives us January, February, March, also green. Quarter two fell off, and I believe quarter three fell off. Now, Obama, his next presidency, right? Because he went again, he had a down quarter four, right? But take note though, Obama two, that was a lower high. So that was super down in that quarter four. Quarter one then became also closed green, quarter two closed green, quarter three green. All right, so he came from a bad quarter four, and then the economy boomed after that, along as or as well as the stock market. Now Trump, right, quarter four ended green. Keep in mind though, right, quarter one ended red, but at the same time, quarter one had a higher high, right? Remember, when it comes to a red candle, that means it just closed lower than where it opened. But candles have wicks, which show you how high the that session went or that candle went. Therefore, what I'm saying about quarter one is there was still a January rally. There was still a January rally. It just fell off, right? Going into February and March. All right. So in all of these quarter ones, quarter one, January rally, quarter two, January rally. Now understand these had a beginning, right? The first week or two of January, it ran and started falling off. Cool. Trump, January ran, I believe, all the way through and then fell off for the rest of those 2 months. Now let's look at Biden. Quarter four, it had a green, right? End of year. Quarter one was red, but also, my bad, yeah, quarter one was red, but also ran into a higher high. Therefore, right, even though quarter one was red, that January still rallied and took us higher. All right. So if you look at the last 4 years, or the last four, not years, last four election years, right, that quarter one comes out strong, right? It can end bad or continue, but it comes out strong, right? And so I'm expecting Trump to pull the same trick where quarter one, right, will give us the Santa Claus rally. I can't tell you what will happen into the rest of the months, right? We can only go off of what we had the last time Trump was in. But I'm expecting, based off of Trump's first presidency and all these other, right, election year presidencies, quarter one to produce. All right, I'm expecting January to give us a bit of a pump. Okay. Now, utilizing this data that I've compiled, looking even deeper in my notes, right? That Monday, right? That Monday, around I believe the 17th, 18th, right? Normally, that Monday is green. That Tuesday was red, but it also visited Monday's highs. So you might have a green Monday, right? And a decent, upward Tuesday or Tuesday that's holding, and it might kind of taper off and kind of level out or drop out, right? And then the rest of the week, there was a bit of, not to say a rug pull, the market kind of came back down before it actually took off into January, right? This is the last week, right? The last week of December. So, well, not the last week, but the second to last, right? But that midweek, that 18th, whatever Monday that comes, has given us a green day, right? Tapers off the rest of the week, and then January starts to pick up for the rest of us. All right, so that being said, I'm looking at Monday to be green. As we look overnight, these stocks are already, jumping. Okay. Let me pull these up. Take us back to the main screen. Application window. This one. Boom. All right, we're back on the chart. Now, looking at overnight, right? Stocks are already kind of pumping, right? You have your Palantirs, NVIDIAs, all these stocks are already starting to come up. So I'm assuming, right, Monday we'll probably see green Monday. That's how I'm going to play it, as a possible green Monday. At least it's going to come out green or whatnot. All right. So that's what I'm saying. Monday should be the day that we actually make our money. Monday should be the day we look to trade. Now, anything can happen, right? My thesis could actually get, derailed. But as of right now, I'm expecting Monday to be a decent day. That being said, even if this week is not, I'm expecting January to give us a green, at least within that first week or two of January. All right, so I'm still expecting a Santa Claus rally. Now, are there any questions as of right now in regards to, the Santa Claus rally or anything so far? All right, let's take a look at a couple stocks that I'm looking at now. Now to recap before I get into the stocks, right? I'm still looking to trade Monday as a green day. And again, Santa Claus rally as of right now is still in and the data shows. All right. Now, also something I want you to pay attention to, right? Pay attention to the news. Pay attention to the economic news and pay attention to the macro world news, things going on with Trump, boat sinking, Venezuela, things like that, right? We all know China and America, they're very strong trade partners. And by strong, I mean, they both want things and they're going to push and poke at each other to get what they want, right? So, something that kind of got my attention was one of these last tankers that Trump has seized from Venezuela, supposedly, right, allegedly had oil, right, that belonged to China or that China had interest in. Okay, so whatever oil was on this last tanker that the US seized, right, it was part of China's economic interest. So kind of keep your eyes on that situation, right? That could be the next kind of event to possibly bring some red into the market or the next tussle we have in terms of trade wars and, tariffs or I'm going to stop, giving you this at this price or I'm going to stop supplying you with that. All right. So that could be something you need to watch closely, especially if you're holding stocks. All right. So again, this is why I need to pay attention to what's going on now, right? If you want to make money or if you want to trade in the stock market, it's not just these charts. You have to pay attention to what else is going on in the world. All right, let me get off of this. All right, core weave. That'll be the first one. Go on the daily. All right, nice and easy, right? Kind of at this area where we're getting a bit of a double bottom, right? We're kind of bounce once, create this neckline top, bounce again, right? Ideally, in a momentum breakout trade, you're looking for it to get above this top, the high of the neckline, right? Once it breaks this 91.22 area, right? You're expecting it to get to this next candle here, 98. Then if you look, we have this gap, right? And gaps get filled, and we always love to trade gaps as long as they're going into those gaps. So if we end up going into this gap above that $98 range, right, we're looking to possibly get as high as 102. All right. There's a lot of upside to CoreWeave in the deal that it just signed, right? And the future of CoreWeave, the future of, data centers, right? That's understand this is not dead, right? Remember, this is what I always teach you guys. When the market goes down as a whole, the problem is not the company, right? And algorithmically, this market has came down as a whole. Therefore, the problem is not the company, it's the algorithm, right? It's the movement of the market, the manipulation in the world news and the things going on. That being said, if you still have that conviction about data centers, if you still understand their position and importance in the future of AI, right, and semiconductors and technology, right, then we're not bearish on data centers. Now we always hope to pick the winner, right? But there's enough room in this economy, right? There's enough room in the world for more than one data center winner. APOD and CoreWeaver too that I, invest in and I trade and I watch heavily. Okay. That being said, on my radar right now is CoreWeave. We have our double bottom. We've created this neckline. We have this big green candle engulfing, right? The two fast EMAs. I would have loved to engulf this 50 EMA, right? With a big green candle, which ideally is bullish, that we're going to catch another big green candle. All right. But as far as breakouts go, right? The first indication that I want to see is us above 85.37. Really above 85, right? Let's keep it simple. Above 85. That right there is good for me. Let me go on CoreWeave. Where's it at right now? We're at 85.89 overnight. So we're sitting above 85. To me, we're good. I like that. The next level I want to see is 91.22. So of course, let's get over 91. Okay. So if we were to trade CoreWeave tomorrow, right, we're already above the level that we like. That being said, if we remain above 85, You're not wrong for taking a position in a stab at 87. All right. So again, on that breakout tomorrow, if it pushes higher, right, or if it comes above some type of pre-market high, right, that is an entry point. And I'll be watching and trying to call it out if I see it as well. But all right, the target I'm looking for is 87. All right, above that 87, then I'm looking to go after the top of that neckline, right, which is 91.22, but we're looking for 91. All right, above 87, our next target is 91. Now, how you play that is if you're in at 85 or above 85, right? 87 would be the price you look to take some profits or, right, to just watch. Meaning, if it gets above that 87, if it runs up and gets above 87, your stop loss now comes above 87. That way, you'll be green and you'll already be above the target you're trying to hit. As it climbs higher, you can then raise your stop loss or leave it where it's at, but it's above price target one. Now, if you don't feel like doing that, you're fine with the $2 move, take it. But 87 is what we're looking for a price target as long as we're above 85. Now, if we get above 87 with some good movement, some volume, and it's still going, right? Higher highs, higher lows, right? Or multiple green candles, we're looking for it to go straight to 90 and 91 and at least retest this neckline up here. All right. So I'll even add here, right? If we see this happen, we know we're in the races. We know we're good. Above this neckline, right? Taking out this 50 EMA as well. We're looking, right? We're looking to get into this gap right here. All right, we're looking for that 98, right? But again, we go five, three, fives, and sevens. So we get above that 191. We're looking for that. Oh, my bad. We get above 91, right? We're looking for that 93. We get above that 93, right? My bad, right here. Boom, 91. We're looking for 93. Above that 93, we're looking for 95. Above 95, we're looking for 97, right? And around there, once we get to 98, we're at the gap. Once we get in this gap, we're going. All right, once we get in this gap, we're going. Mm-mm-mm. Right here is what we're looking for. Because then that'll take us to 102. All right. So if you ask me, if CoreWeave continues to pick up momentum, right? If we can get above that 91, I'm looking for $100 price target in the possibly 102. That'll get us in the gap from there. I don't care where we go, right? Because 85 to 100, 102 is still a good bag to take. All right. So watch CoreWeave for those kind of moves. But again, Corey, tomorrow, as long as we're above 85, we're looking good. All right. Look for that pre-market high. If it kind of comes below the pre-market high and then bounces back above pre-market high, that's your entry if you have no plan or previous entry already made. Okay. And then from there, we're looking for those numbers. 87, right? Then we're looking for the 91. Then we're looking for the 93, 95, right? Then 100 and 102. All right, so that's Corey. But right now, as of right now, right, if you look over here, right, we came down, right, even tried it, came down, but it gave us that double bottom right here, right? That neckline, boom. Once you got above the neckline, it was off to the races. Now, understand the market doesn't continue to just go up, up, up. It goes up, down, then up higher. Things like that happen. So if you're in, at a lower level, don't get scared if you're in a good stock, right? Now, pay yourself, right? Pay yourself. If you're up a good amount, take 50 to 75% of the position off, right? Put some money in the bank, let the rest ride. Because if you look, it came down, right? Grabbed all these hopefuls, scared them out of their position, and then shot up higher. The market does that. That's how the algos, that's how the big pockets and the hedge funds and these bankers make money, right? They trick you out your position, buy your shares, and take them up higher. Okay. But again, same thing here, right? Neckline, breakout, takeoff is what I'm expecting here, especially if we can get a Santa Claus rally, right? Especially if we can end the end of the year strong and go into the beginning of the year strong. CoreWeave has the ability to do the same thing it did here with this double bottom and then this double bottom. All right, it's the same exact setup. See how this yellow line, this 10 EMA crosses above the 20 and so on? I like that. If this yellow line right here, this 10 EMA crosses above that 20, I like that, right? Just look for the similarities. They're giving you the play right here, right here. Now, if we can't get past this neckline and it rejects, then hey, the play's a no go. We're not, we're good. Take the couple bucks and go. But ultimately, we're looking for a breakout. But so we're not missing this run, right? Above 85 isn't a bad place to start. All right. But that's core weave. Next one, NVDA. Also, right before I go, I'm sorry. RSI, right? We broke above the signal line on the daily, coming from the oversold. We love that. All right. We love that. MACD, we haven't crossed the signal line yet, but it wants to. And if we can cross that thing tomorrow, right, that's a good sign. Get that same green cross here. We want that here and to make our way above the zero line. That gives us a good sign right there. So as of right now, we're looking like we're about to turn around. All right, NVIDIA, same thing, right? We're hanging in kind of in limbo a little bit, right? We're up here pretty high, but we've definitely pulled back, right, from 212. We pulled back pretty good. Came down to as low as 169, right? Created a neckline, came back down. What do we hit? 170. So we're still in that zone. We're still in that support zone right here. This is our support zone where we are good to buy, right? I definitely took advantage of it. Excuse me. I've definitely told y'all to take advantage of it at these levels. But there's still a second one to watch, right? This neckline right here, excuse me, above 188, right? That's the top of the neckline. That considers that's a breakout. Above 188, that's a breakout. Our next battle will be the 190, 191, right? Then back up to the 193s, 195s, 197s. Okay. Now let's see to break this down even more so. If I were to try to trade this tomorrow or get in, right? Let's see what price it is right now. Nvidia is 182.73 overnight. Okay, it's up $1.74. Cool. Let's come down, break this down a little bit more. Mm-mm-mm-mm. So this is our 200 EMA. We would love to get above the 200 EMA for a nice little boost. All right. That being said, above 182.54 tomorrow. What are we right now? 182.73, which we're already above that, right? We're already above that. So that's the first indication of where I like to be for a bullish move on Nvidia tomorrow. We're above 182.54. We're above Friday's 200 EMA close. All right. That being said, if we open up or we can get above that 183, I'm looking for 185, right? Ultimately, I'm looking for see where my bad. Let me boom. Try to bring it up a little bigger for you. If you look, you can see where we came down, tried to come up and couldn't get there. Tried to come up again and couldn't get there. Finally, we broke out, but we didn't get far. We broke above 185 and got to 190. That was a $5 move. Perfect. Beautiful. From there, we rejected way back down here. All right. That being said, I'm looking for this same resistance level right here where we kept bubbling and bubbling and bubbling to be the target of the day tomorrow, right? So above that 183, ultimately I'm looking for that 185.41. All right, if we get above that 185.41, we're in the races for 187, right? And we're in the races for 190. Those are the numbers I like, right? This candle right here is 186.84. This big boss candle right here, right? This big candle here came down and created this big drop candle right here. From there, it started to form a accumulation zone, right? Started forming a bottom, right? So these two candles are like the boss fights. Okay, we're still watching these because we're already making our way above here. So once we get above this candle right here, that 182.23, which we're already above that in the overnight, as long as it remains that way tomorrow, the only other candles we got is the 185.70, the 186.84, the 190.99, and then the rest of this big red candle to take out. All right, so those are the levels I'm looking for. above, as long as we stay above the 182s, I want to see us break above 183 to go to 185. All right. So above 183, we're looking for 185. Above 185 with some push, momentum, right? Good movement. I'm looking for 187. Then from there, right, we have this candle right here where it tried to take off. It looked like after hours. Let me just make sure. Because remember what I said about those random pops or those pops in extended hours? Those are signs of where the stock will go back to. So I want to see exactly where that happened. Yep, that was at after hours when the market closed after. Perfect. I like that. That's easy. So all we got to do is revisit that 188 to get to 190. Visit that 185. All right. So above 185, I want to get to 188, then 190. All right. So 185, 187, because 187 is my number. Then we get 188, and then 190, 191. After that, we're looking super bullish, right? Understand things can start to come down though, right? But ultimately, this is the neckline, right, of what we call a double bottom. So above that, we should actually pick up more momentum. I don't know if I expect it to reach there in a day as far as tomorrow, unless some good news happens or we're just that bullish, right? And it could be that bullish, right? But at some point, if we do break above this neckline right here, we are going to retest that 197, that 198, and try to work our way back up to the 200s, probably. All right. But again, if I were to trade tomorrow, remember, I'm looking for is above 183, we're going to 185. Above 185, we're going to 187, 188, and so on. Okay. Ultimately, looking for this neckline to be broken to let us know that bulls have taken over. We're out of this bottom and we're taking off. All right. Remember, stop losses, raise those. It doesn't matter if you sell too early for a profit, you made a profit. Do not let your green trade go red. All right. And again, I'm just going over charts. I want you to research these companies, right? Research these stocks. We all know enough about NVIDIA, but if you don't research it, right? NVIDIA is basically that guy on the market when it comes to chips. Now, there's a couple of contenders that came out, and we're going to talk about those too. Okay, but NVIDIA is basically that guy right now. And until then, right, NVIDIA still has a strong outlook. Next one, Palantir. I want to go over Palantir because Palantir just inked a humongous deal yet again. Yet again. Okay. Time after time, Palantir keeps pulling deals. Not only that, right? Conspiracies aside, current conditions and situations and surveillance state comments aside, Palantir is basically embedded when it comes to U.S. defense and offense. All right. Not only that, is Palantir, the company itself, has been militarized. We know that its weapons get used. It's all its tech gets used, all of that. But not only that, remember a while back, might have been last October actually, but I got to look at that again. A while back, right? High level seats in Palantir actually got inducted to the Army, I believe the Army's tech research wing or something like that. So they're literally militarized, right? So Palantir is about to be um to the US what that one company was, or what Iron Man was to defense, what Tony Stark was to U.S. defense and arms sales and stuff. You see what I'm saying? So Palantir is that embedded. I'm not saying it can't fail, but as of right now, Palantir is still on a run. At the same time, we do have this breakout candle. Okay, we do have this breakout candle, right? This is why we learn patterns. If you're not sure about patterns, go back to the library and learn about the patterns, right? Boom. We kept trying to come around these levels, right? Kept trying to come around these levels. And then this candle broke out, right? This is that big boy candle, that takeoff candle, right? That being said, this candle lets us know buyers are in charge, right? A lot of stocks were bought. And as long as it holds at these levels, that means closing. People still held those with conviction. Therefore, Monday might even go higher. So this candle closed or got to a high of 195 exactly. It closed at 193.38. All right, what is Palantir right now? Palantir is 195.79. The high was 195 exactly. So like as long as we open up above, right, the high of Friday's breakout candle, watch Palantir to continue possibly going higher, especially above 195, right? Above 195. The next level is, sheesh, 199. So again, let's take it like this, right? If you want to try to make as much money as possible without losing above 195, let's look for 197, right? Above 197, then we'll go after that high of 199. All right. Once we break that 199, we have all these buyers, right? These green candles that we're adding more buyers to if we get this high. That's all. That's see where this green is? Some of these people bought here and they didn't sell, believe it or not. Right? So all we're doing is if we get back up to these levels with green candles, we're adding buyers to these buyers, making this pump even stronger. All right. At the same time, we still got to be careful because if there's a fail tomorrow, right? If we let's say breakout and still come down below, right? If we drop below Friday's high, we can still fall back into this resistance area and probably come back down. So you got to pay attention to the charts and where these tops are. Okay. But again, we're above 195. We're at 195.74. So if we maintain that or open up above that tomorrow, right? Watch for Palantir to push even higher into the 197s, 199s. All right. Now, as far as the future goes, Palantir's very has a very strong outlook. All right. So I can see this even if it comes back down or the market gives us another drop, Palantir still being a big name and a company that goes higher, in the future, into next year and the year or the year after. But if I were to trade this tomorrow, right, we're looking for it to stay above 195, right, and take us and push to 197. And if it continues to rise, right, we're looking at 199 for a final take profit or maybe leave a runner. All right. Now, you got to understand something, right? A lot of these big tech or other companies started taking off and solidifying themselves, right? They made their moves or these big moves. So now we're in kind of a manipulation area where they'll go up and down, might even drop some. People are still trying to buy euphorically, right? And losing money. It's fine. We don't got to chase these. You pivot to the pick and shovel plays, right? You pivot to the pick and shovel plays. And one play that I mentioned months ago that I still like today is COHR. Okay. This, look, we were down here with it. We were down here in the 90s on COHR playing this gap I tell you about. And look where we are now. Right? Came to 200. Telling you, these gaps are no joke. In a bull market, these gaps get filled. You might see some come down, but that's just a sign and an indicator that it's still strong and pushing. All right. One thing we're good at is finding patterns, right? One thing we're good at is finding patterns. So notice here, we have this come up, this come down, accumulation, bottom forming, red candle, green candle. Might even come down one more time and take off. This drop, somewhat of accumulation, red candle, green candle. All right, I'm not saying it's going to happen exactly the same, but I'm looking for COHR to probably revisit that 200. I'm looking for it to probably revisit that 200. What I want to see though, if I were to trade it tomorrow, is to break above that high of 187. What is it right now? It's at 189.26. It's already broken above that, right? That being said, we have this red candle. We're now getting into this big red candle. Let's see where we can fit in. 30 minutes. Go to the 30 minute. What levels do we have? 188. This candle. 190. Tomorrow, if COHR gets above 190, I'm looking for a push to 191, right? 193. Let me see what do we have here. Yeah, let's go 194. All right, above 190 on COHR, we can see 194. Above 194, let's go to 195, right? We like those holes, the fives and the tens. So above that 194, we can see 195. And then above that, the high of this red candle right here, where the drop actually got violent, was ultimately 196. All right, and that's my big goal right there. Above that, all we have is that 200 roof, right? That 200 was that. Is it 200 or 199? 200. We have that 200 roof. All right. So again, we're currently already above what we were looking at. We're at 189. So above 190, I want us to get to 193, 194, right? Then I want us to get to 195, 197, and then ultimately at 200. You might get that 200 and reject some. If not, right, that's the third tap. We tapped it once, we tapped it twice, it came back around, built all this momentum right here. This accumulation, buyers are coming into play, right? We broke out of this resistance right here, right? Tap, 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 but it didn't come all the way down. It stayed above the 200, right? And it pushed. And as of right now, overnight, we broke through it. We went from 195 to 189. My bad, not 195. 185 to 189. That's 343, right? That's three over $3 move right there. That being said, right, momentum is here, buyers are in charge, and we finally broke out some. So if we can eat off this tomorrow, I'm looking for us to get above 190 for that break. All right, into this red candle right here, ultimately leading to where we at 196. All right, so again, above 190, we're looking at 193, right? 194, 195, 197, 199, 200. All right. Now, COHR, for those who might not know, right, is basically it deals with like networking, lasers, right? Vertically integrated manufacturing, right? And it basically is the manufacturing company for all these not manufacturing, but it's a pick and shovel supply company for these quantum stocks, right? As to where I believe it was D Wave, not D Wave. There's another one that's actually a factory, right? It's like a factory for quantum. But this one, right, these are all the parts and things like that. That being said, this is part of your pick and shovel play for quantum. Now, if this starts to take off, you'll probably see some of the other quantum plays take off, all right? So if you're looking at COHR tomorrow, understand the quantum stocks, if COHR moves, quantum stocks are probably moving too. Okay, so just pay attention to that. Let me just QBT. Where are the other ones? Let me see. Quantum, right there. RGTI. So low. So that's a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. But then it started bottoming out right here, and there's breaking above. All right, it's breaking this. Now it's making even highs, right, and higher lows. Those are signs that it's going to start taking off the other way, right? This is a pattern. Once it breaks this pattern and goes the other way, so instead of making another lower low, right, and a lower high, it made an equal low, somewhat equal low, right, and started making an equal high into an equal high and a higher low, which eventually becomes a higher high, comes down to a higher low, and that's how you know you are in a bullish change of structure. Okay, so what is RGTI right now? Overnight, it's up 70 cents, right? This one doesn't move too crazy unless there's a reason to. So just off the strength of the movement, we're at 24.46. It closed at 23.94. After hours was 23.99, so basically 24. Mm. Yeah, I would stick to COHR, right? Because the last few days or the last 2 weeks, COHR has moved more than than quantum in general, right? So you'll probably get a better move from here than you would from these individually in a day. Okay. But keep these on your radar, right? Ion Q, RGTI, QBTS, right? Those are still stocks for the future. Okay. And if this is a turnaround on one of, those Trump election years, we still have a possible strong, quarter two and three ahead of us with a decent run up in quarter one. But yeah, again, I'm watching COHR. I'm not going to watch too much of the other quantum stocks. And then some honorable mentions, right? Amazon and Google. Amazon and Google became contenders, right? Became chip contenders against NVDA. Okay. These two right here have their own version of what NVIDIA offers, is basically what I'm saying. Um, let's see what we got here on these charts. All right, just looking at it on the 30 minute, let's go to the 4 hour. Hold on one second. Who's this? Okay, back to it. All right, let's see. 4 hour. We're still below the 200. Nothing to be happy about. Looking at the daily, right? Now, let me get rid of all of these. Remove 7 drawings. Done. Mm-mm. 232. I want to see Amazon above 232. All right. I want to see Amazon above 232. I want it to actually break this level, right? Because all you got to do, right, is take your line and see where it taps a lot. Boom, boom, tapped, tapped, and busted through, right? This little area, this zone right here, that 232 area. If we break above this, we're looking at upwards of 240, right? The area of equal highs right here, this and this, 240. So above 232, we can get to 240, right? Above 240, we just got this last mountain peak to get to, right? 244s. Get up here where they all touch, 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 touch. 250, right? And then we're looking for upwards of almost 260. All right, that being said, this isn't a bad spot to start a position on Amazon. Now, understand your risk would be below this 200 EMA. All right, so below that 219.76 area, so below 219. So you're risking now, right? This has to be money you're willing to possibly lose. You're risking about $7 to $8 on this play, right? That being said, the risk is kind of high. All right, it's kind of high, but this is a decent zone to buy in regards to where it can go. Let's see what Amazon is right now. But if I'm looking for end of year into next year winners, I'm looking at Google, Amazon, NVIDIA, and Palantir for sure. Those are my top four, along with Meta down the road. Remember Meta in that one-time tax that it paid created a humongous issue for earnings and dropped it greatly, right? I don't think everybody understood why it chose to take that tax. But I mean, once it paid that humongous tax, right, it no longer has to worry about these huge taxes throughout. So now the sky is clear to spend this money, make this money, and innovate. So you never want to count Meta out. So Meta's also in there, right? But again, Google, Amazon, Nvidia, Palantir, Meta, those are like my top five I'm watching for holding into next year, the year after, and so on. But yeah, Amazon put it on your list. Above 232, we're looking good to hit the 240s. Okay. At the same time, this is not a bad area to get into. Just understand your risk tolerance, right? Anywhere from 219 to 2, what's the bottom of this one? 15 is what you're risking if you want a solid stop loss. Now, if you want to just raise your stop, somewhere close by, that's on you. But understand the market likes to push and manipulate and get you out your position before going higher. So, yeah. But Amazon's one to put on your radar. Take a look at Google real quick. I'm just gonna look at these. My bad. And then I'll go over that dividend stock we were talking about. Still has to show me more. I would like to see Google above 308 though. What is it right now? 309.53. All right. 309.53. So now pay attention, right? This is simple. You see where it kind of came down, came up, came down, came up and broke out, right? Accumulation at the top. It took off. This resistance, right? When you catch this takeoff becomes your support. right? Because resistance is at the top, support is at the bottom. If this was a strong resistance and we finally broke out, we're going to come back and test it to see if it's a strong support now and we can hold above it. So far, we tested it and we're bouncing. If we get above that 308, which we already are, we're at 309 overnight. If we hold that tomorrow, right? If we hold that tomorrow, Google is giving us a possible move to create another breakout. All right. That means 321 though. That's a lot. So if we bounce here and get above, and we're already above 308, right? We're looking to hold that high tomorrow, hold that, and make our way towards here, 315, and ultimately 320, 321. All right. Basically, all it's doing is now moving within this range right here, within this triangle, basically like a flag. It came up, and then there's a flag, right? So if I were to draw it for you, the next move is to hopefully come here. If we're in here, right, of course, with the risk being this resistance below 292, there's a chance you could see Google, right, revisit the 220s again, or my bad, 320s. You can see it revisit the 320s from here. So watch Google tomorrow above that, basically where it's at right now, 309.56. All right, above 309.56. You can see that move to the 315s and the 320s. But again, Google is something I'm talking about maybe holding into the future. All right. OT. All right. OT is a ETF, right? But it has decent dividends. It used to be a lot cheaper than this, right? They had a reverse split and made the stock higher rather than lower, right? But the dividend was crazy. Shares were cheap, like $7 or something like that, $8 or $4. It was something, right? But it was like 10 cents a share. And it pays a dividend every week, not every month, not every quarter, not every year, not every half year. Every week it pays a dividend. Now understand though, right? You'd have to try to make as much dividends as possible to offset this drop, especially to offset this drop, right? I only want to put it on your radar right now because it just got rid recently, just got rid of its Coinbase crypto investments, with the exception of two that it's holding on to. Right now, if we remember, crypto actually has been kind of coming down, right? And we know Coinbase moves exaggeratedly with Bitcoin and crypto. So let's say Bitcoin and crypto take a tumble, Coinbase will drop, right? And so having such a heavy position in those stocks, I believe has caused this ETF to kind of really take a negative hit, right? Create a lot of negative NAV. But now that it's kind of shuffled around its holdings, got rid of some of those larger positions in the crypto space. I'm not saying it's going to just make this huge turnaround, but I kind of like where it's at the moment. I'm not saying get in. I'm saying paying attention to the fact that this is a 38.80 stock and the dividend is actually now 49.50 cents per share. Okay, so every week you can get paid, 49 and 50 cents per share based off of this holding this stock right here. Okay. You just kind of have to calculate if it were to come down, right? How much would you really want to buy to kind of catch that return? Now, you want it to ultimately come back up because coming down, you're not going to recover that return off of dividends, right? But you do want it to come back up. So if we can catch this stock on a bounce while in it and holding it, you could catch the stock on a come up while also, right, getting dividends on this stock. What I see in the short term is possibly a run back up to the 40, 41, right? From 38. That's like $2. But that could take, a few days, a couple days or a couple weeks. And over that, you could possibly catch a decent return on dividends based on how many shares you have. Right. But do your research. As of right now, this stock is still coming down just slowly until otherwise. What is it right now? It's 38.99, so it's basically at $39 up 20 cents. I like that, right? Because we're crossing above this candle above the 10 EMA, right? I want you to pay attention to that. All right. We also learned to utilize the candle and the EMA relationship. Once you get a candle close above this 10 EMA, at least for the short term, you kind of have that look like we might be coming back up until the candle closes below the 10, right? If you look at this chart from the top, right here is playing with it, full candle close below the 10, started tumbling from there, okay? Tumbling from there. So what I'm looking for is a full candle open and close above the 10 EMA, right? To let me know, hey, we might be trying to push a little bit higher. And then from there, you need to watch for the signs. Even here, RSI, right? Cross above the signal line from oversold, already moving up in the MACDs. There's a bit of a convergence, right? Where our MACD, this is how we use this too. The MACD is moving up while the chart is moving down. And in some cases creates this phenomenon where it lets us know the stock should be getting ready to move up at some point. Okay, that's kind of how that works. So I kind of like where it's at, but again, this one you kind of gotta watch. This is something I'm putting on radar. I'm not telling you to get in at all, but the dividend's nice. It's still a fairly cheap stock, and if we can start catching a turnaround because it kind of cleaned up its portfolio, this might be a good starter dividend stock for some of you. But yes, that's all I have for tonight. I appreciate your time. I will see you in the Discord tomorrow to make this money. All right. I want to see green in the chat. Appreciate y'all. Have a good night. Catch you tomorrow.
Yep. Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Did you say that Monday is going to be a green day or more of a red day? I was
I'm looking
kind
at
of
Monday to come out green.
okay. Okay. Get
I'm
that
looking
now.
at Monday to come out green. Now, of course, right? B definitely have that objective look, right? Because I'm not always right. But based
Yeah.
on the data, right, I'm looking at Monday to give us some green.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Anybody else?
All right. Hope you guys have a great night and good luck everyone tomorrow morning.
All
Hope
right, y'all.
everything works out. All right.
Peace.
Bye.
Yeah, good night, Professor. Good night.
Good night.